And with Roy Kent in the fold, the team is playing better than they have all season. They're on a 4-game win streak, and they're in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup against EPL team Tottenham Hotspur. Spirits are very high at FC Richmond, but that's never a problem with Ted Lasso. When he heads into work, he runs into Dr. Fieldstone, and she reminds him, if you ever need to talk, make an appointment, but it's still something that Ted just really isn't interested in. He heads into his coaches meeting, and he's just excited about the idea of the FA Cup. He compares it to March Madness over in the States. But it's obvious something's going on with Beard. He doesn't seem like himself, and he's yawning a lot, and eventually, Roy Kent asks, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And Beard lets him know that him and Jane got back together. Everybody acts really excited for him, except one brave soul, Higgins. He asks him, "Do you really think that's a good idea?" And the room gets insanely quiet. When Beard finally leaves the room because he saw that he missed her call twice, Higgins calls an emergency meeting of the Diamond Dogs, and he wants to know why nobody backed him up on this. But both Nate and Ted basically say that telling a buddy that the relationship isn't working never really ends well, especially if the couple ends up getting back together, as much as Beard and Jane tend to do. It's better to just kind of act like you're happy for the guy. The group then heads out to the pitch, and Roy ends up doing what he's supposed to do. He's coaching. And the team is loving it. They're referring to it as the Roy Kent effect. It seems to be bothering Nate a little bit, though. But there's one person that the Roy Kent effect isn't affecting, and that's Jamie Tart. And it's not for lack of trying. Jamie goes up to Roy and says anything I need to do, but Roy ignores him. Ted has to remind Roy, you're paid to coach all the players. And Roy turns to Ted and says, well, then you can dock my pay. As practice continues, Rebecca opens up her office window and yells down to Ted that he has to cancel his plans because she wants him to go to lunch with him that day. And that's because Rebecca's mom wants to meet Ted. She showed up uninvited at Rebecca's house because she's decided to leave Rebecca's father. It got kind of awkward because Rebecca had a guy over and the guy wasn't wearing any clothes, but this news didn't really surprise Rebecca at all. In fact, she's kind of used to it at this point. It happens a lot. Her mom will say that she's leaving her father. Her father then buys her some environmentally conscious gadget. Her mom goes running back to her dad. Circle of life. But for the time being, the two are separated. After practice, Ted and Beard head back in their offices. Keely asks Ted if he wouldn't mind driving to lunch, but then Ted gets a phone call from Henry's school. They want to know if Ted can drop off lunch, but the problem is Ted's kind of far away. And while on the phone, his ex-wife shows up, so she kind of saves the day, but Ted's mood suddenly changes. He doesn't really have time to focus on the phone call, though, because Jamie Tart comes in the office and says, "You guys got to tell Roy to start coaching me." And they all kind of laugh at him, saying, "Wait, you actually want us to tell Roy Kent what to do?" Jamie kind of throws his hands up and says, "Guys, I'm asking for help here." And Ted tells him, "You guys have your own history. You guys have to get together and woman up because you've been doing too much manning up." Keely then turns to Jamie and says, "I'll tell you some advice. Agree with him. That's what I do. Anything he says, just agree with." So Ted heads off to lunch with Rebecca and Rebecca's mom and Keely. This lunch ends up being a little bit painful for Rebecca. And when her mom gets up to leave to go talk to her psychic, Rebecca fills both Ted and Keely in on the backstory between her parents. And Jamie goes and takes the advice that he was given. Next time he runs into Roy, he asks Roy, "Why won't you coach me?" And Roy says, "You don't deserve it." And Jamie actually agrees, which does catch Roy a little bit off guard. So Roy goes in deeper, telling Jamie that the way he plays is dull and conforming. Jamie once again agrees, so Roy decides to really put this to the test, telling Jamie, "And you're ugly." And he fights the urge, but Jamie actually ends up agreeing with Roy. Roy just walks away, though, saying, "I enjoyed that." And Jamie yells at him, "Come on, man, I'm trying to build bridges here." And this results in the two getting into a pushing match where Ted has to run out. And Ted, who has arrived back from lunch at this point, has to get in between the two. And Ted realizes that he's going to have to mend this relationship between the two. Jamie says, "If you're going to make me better, then I want to hear it." So Roy says, "Okay, I'll tell you what's wrong with you. Ted messed you up. He made you a team player. We need you to be a prick out there. We need you to score goals, and right now, you're average. So, sometimes, when it is appropriate, you can be a prick. And trust me, you'll know when the time is right." The next day is the big match between Richmond and Tottenham Hotspur. The game is knotted at 0, and it's extremely close. So Roy decides to give Jamie the signal, which is to flip him off. It immediately works. Jamie starts talking trash to the Tottenham players, getting in their heads, and eventually drawing a foul, which gives him a free kick. And it's a long distance away from the goal. But when Jamie gets that opportunity, he doesn't look to pass. He looks to shoot, and he doesn't miss. It puts Richmond up 1-0. It's actually a goal that Roy Kent called from the sidelines. Richmond, though, is about to pull off a major upset, but they're slowly coming apart. They're playing way too tightly wound. And in arguably the most crucial point of the game, Ted mentally checks out. Beard notices it and asks if he's all right, and Ted says, I gotta go, my stomach, and walks off the pitch. It throws his team completely out of whack, and they end up giving up the game-tying goal. The absence of Ted has piqued Rebecca's interest, so she ends up leaving the owner's box and heading down to see if she can find him. When she gets down there, though, she can't. Now all of the game planning is up to Beard, Roy, and Nate. But Beard doesn't ask Nate's opinion. He says, Roy, what do you think we should do? And they start discussing strategy with each other when Nate just throws his dick on the table, ignores Beard and Kent, and starts making substitutions. He also then tells the defense to play back. And while this is a bold move, it ends up working out. Tottenham, playing very aggressive, ends up getting caught in transition. Jamie goes the other way and scores the game-winning goal. Richmond is going to the semifinals. Rebecca, who is still in the locker room, still looking for Ted, still unsuccessful at that, ends up running into the team and the coaches who run in, and she congratulates Roy, telling him this is the Roy Kent effect. But Roy, give him credit, says, that's not me, that was all Nate. And it's Nate who ends up doing the post-game presser. He tells the media that while he knew that Richmond needed a goal, he also knew that Tottenham needed a goal too. So the idea was to not let Tottenham through, and eventually someone screw up. They did, and they scored. Everybody with the team is in a great mood after this huge win. But something has been weighing on Higgins' mind, and that's how to tell Beard that him and Jane aren't right for each other. He even consoled Rebecca about this, and she had warned him that at one point she told her mom that she should leave her dad, but when they got back together, her mom didn't talk to her for 9 months, so, beware. But Higgins just can't let this go. He wants to be a good friend of Beard, so he catches Beard leaving the field, and he tells him. But Beard doesn't lose his cool on Higgins. He actually gives him a hug, although he does end up going home with Jane. Rebecca saw this conversation going down outside, and she's decided that she needs to have that tough conversation again with her mom. But on the ride home, she ends up calling Ted to see if she can get an answer, and she doesn't. She was looking for one of Ted's pep talks, but all she finds is his voicemail, unfortunately. When she gets home, it's too late. Her mom isn't there. Everything Rebecca said would happen ends up happening. Her dad ended up buying her mom a Tesla, and her mom ended up running back to her dad. She was nice enough, though, to leave shepherd's pie in the fridge. Now that the house is open, though, she ends up calling that boy toy over again to, celebrate the win, if you will. But she's also been talking to a guy on Banter. The conversations have been going really, really well. And he messages her and says, I had a crazy day at work today, but I couldn't stop thinking about you. Maybe we should meet up. And yeah, everybody thought it was Ted, myself included. No, it's actually Sam. Sam has been talking to Rebecca this entire time. Kudos to the writers on that plot twist. This episode, though, doesn't end on a happy note. No one was able to find Ted until Dr. Fieldstone went up to her office to lock up, and Ted was sleeping on her couch in the dark. And you can tell that something's going on with Ted, and he tells Dr. Fieldstone, I want to make an appointment. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.